It's time for Let's Talk Relationship. Before we had that break, I gave you a hint on what today's topic for discussion is, and it is family therapy. Yes, family therapy is what we are talking about today on Let's Talk Relationship. Get interactive with us on all our social media platforms at Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Joy Prime TV. Our WhatsApp line is also active. It's currently on your screen, and so you can start sending in your messages in relation to the topic. And my guests are ready. I have one guest in studio, and my second guest is via Zoom. And so in the studio seated with me this morning is Anita Annan, certified confidence, a life coach and relationship and lifestyle consultant. Good morning, Anita.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am great. And my second guest has decided not to be in studio with me today, unfortunately. Yes, I'll ask him where exactly he is this morning and the reason he decided not to come in studio today. Seth Asafo, clinical psychologist and a lecturer at the University of Ghana Medical School. Good morning, Seth.
Hello, good morning, Asidua. Hope you're well.
Yes, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
How come you're not in studio? Why aren't you with us today?
It also goes to explain that when it comes to therapy, you can do therapy in person and virtually.
Right, okay. And but it's good to have you on the show again. And so today's topic, we are talking about family therapy, why every family needs it. Anita,
yeah.
Family therapy, what is it?
Okay. So I'm coming from the life coaching background.
Okay.
I would leave the
psychologist to give the technical. Yes.
However, family therapy is a branch of group psychotherapy. I'm sure he would explain that. Yes.
Okay.
The main goal of family therapy is to help. You're going to help the family solve situation. There's conflict in the family, so you're going to help the family members. It could be communication problem here and there. And then there are times that family therapy actually helps with mental health conditions. So that's basically family therapy.
It helps with mental health conditions.
Yes, but that's not just all.
Okay.
It could be conflict within the family.
Okay.
Yes, it could be behavioral challenges here and there. Yes. So family therapy comes in, and then at the end of the session, it's expected that the family members are healthier, they have better well-being, they're communicating well, they're interacting with each other well.
Okay.
So that's family therapy.
Right. Seth, are you going to come in with some technical terms?
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
But I'd say that the most important thing about family therapy is understanding that within a family which is considered as a context or a system are many different variables. And these variables obviously impact each individual person in a certain way. Now, sometimes people will offload the effects of these variables on other people because we have poor communication skills or skills to deal with conflict. And so family therapy basically creates an environment, a non-judgmental environment that allows for people to develop better communication and problem solving within the context of the family. I'll give you a practical example would be like when people go and see a therapist, like as a group, like say couples, okay? Most of the time, one thing you realize is the challenges they have, their partners have given them solutions to it. But just because it's their partner saying it doesn't hold any water to them. But once somebody else is guiding the process, it seems like, this makes a lot of sense. And you can look at family therapy as one of that, which also uses a group dynamic approach. So within groups, there are many dynamics that people have. And these dynamics can be harnessed for positive family and the familial relationships.
Okay. So are there types of family therapy?
Yes.
Well,
yes, Seth.
Oh, that's okay. I thought you were asking. Well, there are several types, except that the most important thing to recognize is at the end of the day, it's supposed to foster a good relationship. So the most commonly used type of family therapy is what we call systemic family therapy. And it looks at the family as a system within several other systems. Okay. So, for example, in the family is the relationship between, you can look at just the family as a system, where you look at mom and dad as parents, mom and dad as a married couple, okay? Children's relationship to the married couple, which is their parents, and also their relationship to like disciplinary action, etc. So in systems, in systemic family therapy, we're looking at how the various systems affect the family dynamic. Now, so when you leave the immediate family, you can go on to the outside world, which is the work relationships that maybe parents have, school relationship that children have, etc., etc., etc. Now, we also have what we call structural family therapy. And when it comes to structural family therapy, the most important thing it tries to do is to help people understand the hierarchies within any family dynamic and also setting boundaries. So, for example, communicating dislikes is a way of setting boundary. Then we also have functional family therapy. And that basically looks at like you have, and in all like family therapies, there's a dysfunction that you're trying to solve by opening or creating more context for the people who are utilizing the service. Now, in functional family therapy, it's a very short and concise kind of therapy that tries to address a specific issue within the family. And this is this would be a family coming to you and say, well, we are having this particular problem with our child. Our child is not able to do A, B, C, D. Now, they might look at it from it's the child's problem, but we understand that there might be a family dynamic that's causing that to happen. For instance, we noticed that in marriage or counseling, marriage therapy, which is another form of family therapy, when you have parents who are consistently fighting, children take on a certain role. And the role they take on is that they become a mediator. Now, the mediator could take many forms. So you could have a child, every time the parents start to argue, they start to cry. Why are they crying? They are crying so they can take attention from mom and dad to themselves. So that they stop that fight. Okay, so the child becomes, we might look at the child to be overly sensitive, but the reality is the child is taking on that role just to mitigate the challenges or the conflict that mom and dad has. Now, in the same way, you could have a child.
You know, Seth, before you continue, this instance is something that happens often with children specifically, and I wonder if it's intentional that okay, I'm going to cry for mom and dad to give me attention so they stop fighting.
Yes.
Do you get what I'm saying? Is it that they know, they are aware of themselves? Is this something in particular that they are communicating?
Well, the reality is, even I cannot tell for a fact if they know or they don't know. But they do know that something isn't right. Because first of all, when you're fighting, your tone definitely changes. And among kids, what we know is that high-pitched tones are things that their brain does not like. So when you use those high-pitched tones, it unsettles them. So as a way of fighting that discomfort, they have to find a way to do something about it. Now, and this would be in little children, let's say up to about 8 or 9 years. Now, when they transition into adolescence, then you might start to notice that the child takes on a certain role where, and sometimes it's very, parents are doing this unconsciously, where mom is dumping on the child. Your father has done this. And then dad is equally dumping on the child. And many children start to believe that perhaps it's their fault. And as a way of dealing with it, there are a number of, there are so many ways in which they can deal with it. But classically, you'll notice change in behavior. So you might see that a child who goes to school and was consistently interactive suddenly is withdrawing. Their grades were good, is suddenly declining. They become, maybe the word I'm using, insolent, might not be the best, but they are defying authority. All these are signs that shows that there's something happening. And most of the time, we will say the child is becoming stubborn without knowing that there are things in the background. Now, we've had simple instances where like a loss, and family therapy is used to manage a range of different things. So you have issues of, for example, grief and loss of maybe a loved one in the family. It could be a sibling, a parent, and then suddenly you notice changes in behavior. Now, the changes might not entirely be just the grieving, but how the family is dealing with it. So you have a family that does not want to talk about that grief, or they don't want to talk about it. They're just saying, oh, it's okay, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Now, what you're doing is you're teaching the child the dynamic that says, don't express your emotions. So when the child internalizes those emotions and it gets out of hand, what happens? Then they blow out.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting field that looks at many of the external as well as internal factors. So you have the internal factors that the child has, which is the temperament that they come with, which affects the parenting style, the attachment styles, and so many other dynamics.
Okay. Anita, can family therapy fix all family issues?
No, I wouldn't want to say that. You know, that it's not a panacea for everything. You see, yeah. For the most parts, it can.
Most parts?
But yes, it's just like
okay, now
healing.
let's talk about the most parts that family therapy can fix. Issues that happen in the family.
Right.
What are some of the issues in the family that family therapy
Like you
can
rightly
fix?
mentioned, grief.
Yes.
Death
Okay.
has happened.
Yeah.
The family is not aware that they're not even dealing with it well. You know, grief is a huge thing. And sometimes when people are grieved, people show different emotions. You see, yes. So once you're showing different emotions and there are children around it, he mentioned children, so I want to touch on that. They pick on all these emotions. They see how the adults are functioning, yes, or the adults are telling them that, oh, you have to suppress it, you have to be tough and all that. Mommy will not be happy that you're crying and all that is suppressed. And also grief is a huge thing. And I wish that more Ghanaians would appreciate family therapy, because there are lots of things happening that if people went to family therapy, it could help. Stress, acute stress. When people are stressed in the family, they have a way of behaving. A lot of the time, we look at it from the marital point of view, relationship point of view. Yes, but the other family members, it takes a toll on them. It takes a toll on you and your partner, and then the rest of the family. So there's grief, there's stress, there's also mental health conditions. You see, we could have mental health conditions like eating disorders, you know, the anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorders and all that. Yes, they're huge things, but people may not be able to put a term on it and call it family therapy. At some point, they may know that they need some sort of help, but they may not appreciate the whole concept of family therapy. The truth is, here in Ghana, any time that we hear stuff like therapy or mental
It's so foreign.
Yes,
Yeah.
it sounds foreign. And people shy away from it because they think that, oh, Jama, Miribodam, or something like that. Yes. So even counseling, when it comes to counseling, people would want to shy away from it, even though it's not supposed. Everybody has issues in their own way. But let's just say that somebody feels that if you're going to therapy or counseling, truly, Miribodam, let's assume that some people will call you mental. That's fine. You know that you need help. That's the advice I'd want to give people. If you're a family, if you're an individual, you know that you need help, regardless of what people are saying about it. Still seek the help. At the end of the day, anybody who is seeking help, eventually, it's not mental, is it?
Yeah.
Exactly, yes. So family therapy, stress-related issues, conflicts within the family, communication issues. There are times that members of the family don't know how to communicate. Parents maybe lording it over children. Children have also become extremely arrogant. They don't, so that communication barrier is there, and it becomes a huge thing, because once you two members cannot communicate, then do we have a family? Do we have a relationship? Yes, so conflicts like that can also cause, we demand family therapy. And sometimes major changes in a family system, sometimes unemployment. One time daddy is employed, the next moment daddy is not employed. Yes, that's a huge thing, because daddy is already stressed. You know, especially for the men, they're the breadwinners. So if he's unemployed, he's dealing with his own emotions. Now, if he's not aware of the dynamics as far as the family is concerned, the way he reacts and acts to certain things would affect the other members of the family. So all these things can go to family therapy. The therapist will help them to manage these things, and at the end of the day, they have the general well-being. Their problem like unemployment, the man or the family member may not be gainfully employed at the time that they're done. However, they have a better appreciation of the situation, and they help each other through it.
You know, one thing I've noticed about a lot of Ghanaian adults, when it comes to therapy, this is what most of them I know think, that, even the person you're going to tell your problems to also has problems.
Yes.
So what's the guarantee that he or she is in the right position to advise me or help me through the problem?
Yeah.
And some also feel like, I'm not too comfortable with letting an outsider know the issues that I am going through in my family. You know, so it's like, personally, how can we help them break that mentality and make them understand that it's okay for you to seek help, especially when it comes to your mental health?
You know, earlier on the show, you were talking to the gentleman about public speaking and confidence building.
Yes.
That's basically, I love confidence, but I'm a certified confidence life coach.
Okay.
Yes. When people build your confidence to a certain level, it gets to a point where they're like, no, it doesn't matter what other people are thinking. This is what I need, so I'm going all out for it. To say that everybody has issues, the therapist, the counselor, the psychotherapist, whoever also has issues, what makes you think that they can? These are specialized. They've gone through training. So everybody has an issue, but people have their own techniques. People have their own skills and talents. People have gone through training. So you have to get over yourself, you know, the situation, and say that, no, just because this is a certified or a licensed professional, I would want to take the step and see. You see, it's worth a try. Because what is this thing about bottling it? So if you don't go see the person, what happens to your situation? It's not solved, is it? Yes. So why don't you then take the step? If you go to the therapy or counseling, whatever it is, and you don't get the answers, at least you tried, right? And then the second issue, what's the second issue that you mentioned?
That is the first one was they thinking that they have issues.
The second is you're not comfortable sharing.
Psychologists have issues, and then they also thinking that, okay, what if I'm sharing this one outside? I'm not comfortable with the sharing and then all that.
And it's fine. You see, we all can be protective of our families, and you don't want to go tell them, okay, this is what my dad is doing. This is all. It's understandable.
Yeah.
However, like I mentioned earlier, they're trained. Right? You're trained. And one thing about counseling, psychotherapy, all these special techniques is that it comes with confidentiality. These are professionals, and you're trained to do that. It comes with confidentiality. Nobody's going to go out there and broadcast your family issues. No.
Yeah.
So people should now get to understand that, yes, once I'm moving from my friends, once I'm moving from my usual network and I'm going to see a professional, they're going to be very confidential about my issues, and they will help me.
Okay. So. Seth, briefly, at what stage in a situation, in a family situation, should family therapy be sought?
Well, if you ask me that, I'm not going to be able to say stage 1, stage 2, or stage 3, but I do understand one thing. If you consider every family as a system made up of different people, there are always going to be conflicts because we have different ideologies about doing things. One of the challenges that many people face where we have a lot of conflicts is we tend to conclude without looking at the perspective of other people. And so we would normally talk about emotional intelligence or being empathetic in your understanding. So in any system where there are different parts, there's always going to be a conflict. And I would say every now and then, it's important for you to just check in with your therapist. It's like doing a maintenance and asking, well, all is going well. And I've had several of these instances where people would come to me and say, well, all is well. I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. And then after about an hour of chatting, they realize that they're masking a lot of things. Yeah. So, for example, they're upset with their partner or the upbringing, child upbringing technique or something, and they internalize these things, or they tend to sit on it and say it's not a big deal without going to somebody. I mean, physically, even if you look at our physical bodies, we're all functioning, but at the background, there are a lot of things that may be going wrong we're unaware of. Yeah. It's only if you go for a routine checkup and you have all your tests done, when they say, well, these markers are down, they could be indicative of A, B, and C. So it's not a thing of doing it only at the time when things have become dysfunctional. But even when things are pleasant, it's good to check in. Now, if you check in and all is well, that's even a double assurance for you. So it's not a specific thing, but sometimes we recommend specifically family therapy for a reason. I'll give you an example. So I work in addictions, and sometimes I'm working with somebody who has gone through a residential part of the addiction process. Now they are coming back home, okay? And the family has a different concept of what addiction is. For your information, or everyone listening out there, addiction is not a moral issue. It's not something about willpower. It's a brain disorder because whatever the addiction is, it affects the same part of the brain, whether it's drug or behavioral. So if you're taking cocaine and you are on social media all the time, the addiction form is basically the same, apart from the fact that the chemicals can have different effects on you.
Okay.
So the person is coming home, and we need to have a family therapy to help them understand that sometimes there are things you have done that have pushed the person to go into this. So we also find that in addictions, for example, a lot of people take to addiction as a coping mechanism because we're looking for a quick way to deal with a certain emotional pain or unresolved conflict within us. So it's something that allows you to distract. And the more you distract and the brain gets used to it, then basically the brain says, this is what I want to do. And it becomes problematic. So the dynamic in that interaction is to allow the family to understand, because they are saying, but just stop. And the therapist basically tries to make them understand that it is not about just stop. It's about the things you can do to help them. For instance, if you neglect the addict, they take an all or nothing thinking approach, which is, Charlie, to what end? But if you're with them consistently and you say, don't worry, we'll do this together, because you can communicate. So we've had instances people would go into a residential facility and come out, and when they do, the family expects them to be angels. And family therapy will basically explain to the family that they still have their flaws. So if, for example, they get angry because someone has upset them, that doesn't mean you should start saying, you are back on the drug, or your behavior is there. That's not it. So you use these to basically settle the family. Now, as you foster better communication, let's not forget that human beings are hot-wired to connect. We always want to connect. And if you cannot communicate, which is the medium for connection, then it gets problematic. So in teaching these communications, as well as helping maybe the addict or the person who's ill or the caregiver set boundaries, it allows for things to work. And don't forget that family therapy is not just about a nuclear family. It could involve in-laws and all of that. So if you look at our Ghanaian system, where it comes to a lot of, when we do couples therapy, you hear, my in-law has done this, is doing this. Family therapy can be an avenue to explain this. Recently, I was using family therapy in an issue of a lady who's not able to have children. And the way the family is putting on the pressure, it seems like it is something she has done, or that she went to the market and decided to pick, I don't want to have children. And as you create this context for them, you create an empathetic context where people can relate or put themselves in the shoes of the person, thereby reducing the stress that, she was also talking about.
All right, Seth, thank you very much for the wonderful submission. But then before we go, let me take your final submission.
I say about myself?
Yes.
Okay, good. So
briefly.
Therapy is an amazing tool. Everybody should check in every once in a while with their mental health professional, a trusted colleague, because as you speak, there are things that come out that makes people recognize that perhaps a different perspective might be helpful. And family therapy can be an amazing resource for that.
All right. Thank you very much, Seth. Anita, final submission.
Yes. So therapy, counseling, all of that, very crucial to our mental health. I just need to say this, that I wish families would build capacity before they go into therapy, because during therapy, all of these things are going to come out. You see, because the therapist would want people to be comfortable, share what's on your mind, share what you're feeling and all that. So families should build capacity before they go into therapy, because when things come up and they don't have that capacity, shock absorbers in place, it can actually escalate into something else. So therapy is crucial. Everybody needs it. You can just walk into. That's why for my center, we like to make it very liberal. Sometimes it is through life coaching that we can actually recommend or refer. You see, so coaching is very, very important. Go through counseling, coaching and all that. And if it's a serious issue, then there's that recommendation or referral. That's if it's clinical. Yes. So very important for everybody.
All right. Thank you very much, Anita. And that's it for Let's Talk Relationship right here on Prime Morning. My guests have been Anita Anand, certified confidence life coach and relationship and lifestyle consultant. And via Zoom, we're joined by Seth Asafo, clinical psychologist and lecturer of University of Ghana Medical School.